All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and talk Extracted. I'm excited about this. I got a chance to look at the first episode. I got a lot of questions here, but let's start with the beginning process. How did you become part of Extracted itself?
Yeah, so on Extracted, I am the head of extraction. So my role is to take the survivalists, who are the people that are going out into the field, go and drop them out into the field. And then, should their family member decide to extract them and press the big red button, I'll then be going in to get them. So I got involved because I had the right skill set. So the ability to be able to move quickly, because once that button gets pressed, have to deploy very fast. And I've got various toys to hand, so helicopters and boats and things. So having the skill set of being able to do helicopter operations, as well as boats and moving people around, sort of leadership and experience of operating in terrains like this, is how I got involved.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, right? Because most times when you have survival shows, it's the people themselves saying, "I can't do this anymore," right? Now it's kind of in the eyes of the family members to really put to test whether or not they could really watch their family members go through this. How was that an interesting level for you to kind of see that difference from maybe what you're used to seeing?
Yeah, it was really fascinating. It's like this the social experiment side of it. And like personally, I have a real interest in the psychology of survival. So why some people walk out of situations and others don't. So for me, this was really interesting to be involved in. I've been working on survival adventure shows behind the scenes for over 20 years. And actually seeing this come in where you've actually got the family members or the loved ones who are making decisions are for their survivalist. So the survivalist can't choose to extract themselves. They can't choose, what kit they take in, what supply drops they might receive or not receive. That's all in the hands of their loved ones or their family members. And seeing that dynamic play out, and what was important for the show as well, that it wasn't just one person that was making those decisions, that there was two. So you've got that dynamic there, and then you've got the dynamics of the other families and the influences of the other families that are also in what we called headquarters, which was, I suppose, the base camp where the families were situated, able to watch 24 hours a day on monitors, their survivalist out in the field.
So obviously you're used to the survival element. What's maybe something that kind of surprised you about the landscape of the families in the headquarters there that maybe kind of surprised you a little bit, or what was that dynamic like for you?
What I suppose what surprised me, that in hindsight probably shouldn't have surprised me as much, but was actually that uh, it seemed that the family members at times struggled far more than the survivalists did out in the field. And that was, again, for me, with this the psychology bit, was just like, well, why is that? And it's like, well, the survivalists, their day is taken up with surviving, whereas those that back at the headquarters, they're stuck. They're in this, it's nice and warm. They've got food, they've got water, whatever they want, but they've got a lot of time to think.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was one of the interesting things in watching that first episode. I'm not going to dive too much in the first episode, obviously, because I can't wait to talk more in depth about the show. But one of the things that I thought was crazy that the show accomplishes is it's shot, 24 hours a day using so many cameras, like 176 individual cameras, like 100 audio feeds. What's it kind of like seeing that all come together? You have a history and background in production and see these things. This is like bigger than anything we've ever seen before.
It's insane. I mean, yeah, I mean, just to put it into context, because I know this is the first episode is going out around the time of the Super Bowl. There are more cameras involved in Extracted than there are in the Super Bowl, which is just like blows your mind. And if you're thinking that each one of those cameras is recording 24/7, and the survivalists when they're out in the field, we've got like robotic cameras that are attached to the trees that are able to follow them wherever they're going, and moving around. And their loved ones back at headquarters can then, on the monitor, click to the camera, the relevant camera as to where the survivalist is, and they can go in and watch that. And we've also got the audio feed so they can listen in to hear, whether their survivalist is talking to themselves or like, help me, and like, the story. It's just like it. that side of it, the technology of it, like I've never seen anything on this scale before. It was groundbreaking, and it did take trial and error because this kit and equipment was had to be functioning 24 hours a day. So it was like, well, how do you keep it cool and cooling down the systems? But then it's cold, so it's like, well, then how do you keep it warm? So there was so much, and I think that there were so many different layers of that that caught people off guard as well because it'd never been done on this scale before.
Another thing that I like is when you see these survival shows, everybody has this mind frame of quote unquote how easy it is. And then, of course, we see these individuals slowly start to unravel. Why do you think people have that mind frame that anybody, I could just at any time go out here and survive?
Well, I think because when you're sitting in the comfort of your own home and you're watching somebody make decisions, like it's very easy to think like what on earth are they doing? Like, because I sometimes watch the cast or the contributors on these shows and you're just like you're watching them from like the sidelines and you're just like, what on earth are you doing? But when you're in that situation and like particularly as time goes on and you're cold, you're wet, you're depleted of nutrition, you're maybe dehydrated, you're not getting enough sleep, like our cognitive function, the way our brains work, it starts becoming impacted. And you're not thinking straight and you're reacting, and oftentimes you're in a much more animalistic place, and like logic and reasoning have kind of gone out of the window because you're so desperate to survive. And for all sense and purposes, although it's a setup, it's a produced situation, that person is genuinely in that situation, and the body and mind are reacting as if they are in that situation, which is what they are in. And it's like the responses to that become much more animalistic and very basic. And this is why we then start seeing people making strange decisions. And until you're in that situation where your body's desperate for food, for water, for sleep, it's very hard to fully empathize with that.
Yeah, so obviously Extracted's premiering on February 10th on Fox. My big question to you is, without diving into spoilers, what can audiences expect from Extracted?
What can they not expect? It's like intrigue, alliances, subterfuge. Ultimately there's a goal of winning this cash prize at the end of it. But it's like, how are you going to work together, or are you going to work together? And who are you going to undermine to get to that point? And are you going to remember that this is actually a game? So yeah, there's so much, so many different layers as that are part of the show that are just like intrigue and fascination.